You're listening to the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week it's a family affair on the podcast. A month ago or so, I had Callum Pettit on the show. Now it's his older brother, Callum's turn. Cal's story is an interesting one. Most of the time, it seems like the older brother is the one with more talent and casts the bigger shadow. While one might think that Sean is the better skier out of the brothers, that's arguable. Their paths have taken them different places on the mountain, and we talk about growing up packaged with Sean and breaking away from that package to start his own career. Before we get into the podcast, I want to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement, tell your friends about the show, and shoot me an email if you have any questions, suggestions, or concerns. My email is mike@thepowellmovement, and I will get back to you. Finally, I want to thank my sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, Outdoor Research, and Spy Optic. You're going to find some discount codes from my sponsors in their ads. Use them to get the best deals on things that you're already going to buy. Now, let's talk to Callum Pettit.
Just up in the Pemby. It's getting cold, keeping it warm up here.
What's your summer been like?
Been around here a lot for the most part. Most summers I'd go surfing or go somewhere warm, but I kind of been stuck in around here and working on the place. Did some coaching on the glacier, and I'm dating a girl here that's really into mountain biking, so just kind of like stuck around here and did a lot of biking with her, and yeah, it was good.
Did you go to New Zealand as well?
Yeah, I did go to New Zealand, just got back like a couple weeks ago.
And how was that trip?
That was fun. That was a Giro trip, and Sam Smoothie was like our tour guide over there and had all like the activities kind of planned out based on the weather. When we showed up, it was pretty springy. We got a day up at Cardrona. It was like the end of Jossie Wells' event, and it was like skiing in the little mini pipe there. And then 2 days after that, it snowed over a foot down in Wanaka, which I guess is really rare. And the whole mountains got like hammered. And then we jumped in a heli like the next day, and I got to see the whole backcountry area, and it was pretty mind-blowing how many mountains there are there. I didn't realize like how vast the mountain range was there.
Was that your first time in New Zealand?
Yeah, so I knew a lot of friends that have gone over there mainly for park riding. So I'd seen some backcountry shit from New Zealand, but not a ton. I thought it was kind of a smaller, I just didn't know there was like a huge range of mountains there. And it was cool because it kind of felt like home with everyone speaking English and good food and close to the ocean. We even did one little day of mountain biking there before the snow came. That's similar to here where you can kind of do like a bunch of things in one day. It kind of felt like April, like in Whistler. It was like all nice in the valley and snowy up top.
Every place you travel has some unique, weird things about it. And it sounds like New Zealand is similar to home, but were there any weird things over there?
I mean, there's a lot of freaking sheep moseying about. That was like, I guess, the weirdest thing. And then they've got a lot of funny like slang words and shit like that. That is pretty entertaining. They're very passionate about their coffee and their outdoor activities. Oh, actually, the weirdest thing was when we went biking one day, the brakes were swapped on the wrong side. So like your back brake was your left hand and your front brake was your right hand. So like one of the guys almost went over the bars, and I almost like went over the bars at one point. That was difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that happens to everybody at least once, where you squeeze a little too hard on the wrong side and you think you're going to die.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing. And then I guess, driving like is obviously pretty weird as well.
Well, getting into the podcast, we are going to talk a lot about you and your brother's relationship because I've known both of you, and I would say that you've lived a whole lot of your life living in the shadows of your little brother, where Sean has been looked at as the golden child. You've always been looked at as great as well, but I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like you've always had to play second fiddle. Sean was the little cute one who could do crazy things on his skis that no one else could do. And Cal was a great skier as well, but he was his older brother. And did you feel that throughout your early childhood?
I mean, Sean definitely got more recognition for his feats, and not taking anything away from him, but like, yeah, he just got the Red Bull deal and like all that stuff. So obviously like he was going to be more popular and more well known. So I definitely felt like a lot of people were like, oh, you're Sean's brother, instead of like, oh, you're Callum.
I would say even before Red Bull came into play, though, when we would be at different contests, US Open back in the day, you had a legitimate bag of tricks and you were skiing really well. Sean probably didn't have the same amount of tricks as you, but to see a little kid doing what he could do, just the way he could boost and the floaty kind of fun, playful style, which you have as well. But when you see a dude who's like 2 feet tall doing that,
Yeah.
it opens everyone's eyes to like, whoa, look at that guy. He's so cute. And did you ever feel like you got lost in the shuffle or anything when you were younger, before real sponsorship even came into play?
Not really. I never really thought about it too much. I remember one trip, we were cruising in the BC interior with a bunch of people from Whistler, and it was like a little film trip, and we were actually in my dad's motorhome, and there's like this one girl on the crew, Victoria, and she would cuddle with Sean and stuff because he was all a little cute and little. He was all like hyped. He was definitely like got the cute points for being all small, and people like messing with him or joking around with him because he's the little guy.
Your guys' life started in a different place. I mean, was it Quebec where you're born?
Well, we were born in Ottawa, but my parents lived across the border in Quebec, and it was actually kind of an English-speaking community in Chelsea, so we didn't speak a ton of French, but our home mountain was Mont Cascade, where we learned to ski, and yeah, we lived there till I was 1999, and we basically skied every single run you could on the mountain by the time we were that age, so we definitely outgrew it, and then it was a good time to my mom moved us out to Whistler, and it was a crazy year that year when we moved out. It was their biggest snow year still on record, I think. So that was pretty surreal, coming here and then just snowbanks everywhere. And I remember one night we got trapped at a friend's house because it just snowed so much. My mom was there with us, at my mom's friend's house, and we had to stay the night. And yeah, it was pretty crazy, to be thrown into Whistler and see that much snow.
Before you even get there, I mean, is your family living together, mom and dad together when you're in Quebec?
No, they were split up when we were pretty young, and we lived close by, probably half an hour away from each other. But we'd go to my dad's on the weekends, and we lived in this town called Chelsea with my mom.
And your parent dynamic is different than most, because I look at your mom and I don't know her too well, but she seemed very responsible, always knew what the kids were doing and was on point for everything like your standard awesome mom would be. And to go above and beyond, she moved you guys to Whistler and created a career for you guys by moving you to this town. But then I look at your dad and he's like the dude at the fraternity party who is pretty loose. He's a fun guy. He's got the name Groovemeister.
Yeah, I was just going to say his nickname is Groovemeister. He's super loving and wants the best for us. But yeah, also acts more like a friend, party dad. But the reason why he was okay with my mom moving us so far away was because he knew that Whistler was such a great community and place to live compared to where we were living in Quebec. And I think if it was anywhere else in Canada, he would have put up more of a stink about moving so far away, but he'd come out and visit. But yeah, definitely thank both my parents for the opportunity to live out here.
Great opportunity, but as kids, does it bother you guys not having a dad at home or not having a dad close by? Because I'm sure there's a phone call, but there are some things that I think a dad brings to the table. And did you feel like you were missing that at all?
Yeah, I guess looking back, I never really let it get to me at the time, but I think he definitely got to him. He was definitely wishing he was out here, and he was trying to move out here for a while, trying to sell his place in Quebec, and eventually did. He lives out here now, but it definitely would have been nice to have him out there the entire time. But we got to spend our summers back with him, which was fun. It wasn't as good as it could be, but we definitely tried to balance it.
And so those summers, Sean and I talked about it a bit. You spent it in Carneyland at festivals and other places. And you worked in a lemon that served lemonade, and also at the Poutine Machine, which served Canada's best poutine. Was that just pure friendship with your dad when you were doing that? Or did he take the dad role? Or were you guys pretty much free reign on the carnival and fair festival scene?
I mean, he definitely put us to work. So I guess that's kind of a dad role.
Your employees?
Yeah. He definitely wanted us back doing work on his ranch in quotation. He was actually always kind of hurting on employees, and our cousins that were our age would work. Basically his whole staff was 15 years old at one point, or under working these events. which was pretty fun. But yeah, like he definitely wanted us to have a good time, but also wanted to make money. Basically, when we weren't working, he was taking us like wakeboarding on his boat on the Ottawa River. There's work, but then there was also play, which is cool.
And when you guys were working, did it free him up to have some fun times at the fairs, or was he working hard too?
He's always been kind of slaving away. He works hard until it's like 7 o'clock. Then he starts loosening up on some beverages. But the whole festival thing was like hard work. And then once it was over, it was done. And it wasn't your regular 9 to 5. There'd be like weeks where we didn't have to work. And then there'd be like 2 weeks where you'd work every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at that world as, I don't want to say the lost people of society, but it's a traveling band of vendors who like to party.
Yeah. Once the nighttime hits, you're like a werewolf and you start howling at the moon. But it was pretty funny, like people you'd meet there and you'd always be like trading food for different vendors, food. And there was one bumper car guy. This is at the Auto X. The cool thing about the whole festival thing was we weren't traveling with the rides. We did that one once, but then we were doing like blues festivals or jazz festivals and different like things around Ottawa. We got to see a lot of cool concerts at like the blues festival. We actually saw James Brown one year, which was one of the most notable ones.
You saw the Stones too.
Oh yeah, we saw the Stones. We actually like had to sneak into that one. This was the Ottawa Exhibition, which is like the whole rides and carnival. And there was playing in like the football stadium. And one of my dad's friends who's also sold food was working inside the Stones concert. So he had like a few pins for his employees to tell them that they were working inside. And he gave us 2 and we had to like go 2 in, 1 out. And we're like bringing my cousins and like these pins to get in. And one of my cousins, like, I guess just got impatient and just jumped over the fence. And all these security guards chased him. And he ran out and then surrounded my other friend that they thought was my cousin. So at the end, it was just me and Sean in the Stones concert. My cousin and friend, we were trying to sneak in, like got kicked out. And then we ended up making it all the way to the front stage, standing on like old people's chairs that let us stand. It was pretty awesome.
On the other side of your life, other than your summers at the festival circuit, your mom packs up everything. She moves to Whistler. You guys end up living in a basement. You're skiing every day. And really, from talking to your brother, it sounds like you guys didn't have any money. Your mom's working like 3 jobs to make it work for you guys. And do you realize all the work that she's putting in, or does it just feel like this is our next move?
We were definitely like roughing it in Whistler. When we were there, we were living in basement suites of families' homes and driving a shitty Toyota Tercel.
Which is great in Whistler.
Yeah. I remember one time being slightly embarrassed, pulling up to the school in this like shitty like beater car. All these other kids are like showing up in nice SUVs and shit like that. But when you're a kid, you don't really need tons of luxury. You're just like to play outside and play in the snow. And we definitely had all that stuff. So we may have not been rich, but we were like living like a sweet lifestyle.
You're living in one of the best places in the world. You get to ski every day. And those early years in Whistler, when you get there and you see all that snow, is it, holy shit, we were finally where we need to be? Or is it more like, holy shit, it snows way too fucking much here?
Yeah, I remember being very like upset when we first were moving from Quebec, like hadn't been to Whistler yet. Going so far from all the friends that I know. I don't know anyone over there. And didn't even really know what Whistler looked like or what it was exactly. And then once we were there, it wasn't too hard to like be sad. It was almost kind of like I forgot about back east and started new, and it was not really a big deal, like because we were so psyched on all the snow and having this mountain to play on. So it definitely wasn't that very hard of a transition.
Yeah, and the transition for you from just regular skier to sponsored skier happens really fast. I think you guys were in Whistler for 1.5 years before someone chases you down and's like, hey, you guys are great skiers and my uncle or someone runs Oakley and we want to put you on. Is that how you remember it coming together?
It was definitely more than a couple years, I think. But one of the Oakley reps in Whistler chased us down and was like, hey, like, take my number. I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was kind of exactly that. Like someone just saw us flying by on the mountain. Yeah, and then we got set up with the Canadian Oakley guys, and then I'm pretty sure Turpin told K2 about us. Yeah, and then we started traveling to the US Open and shit like that, and just, yeah, snowball effect.
Sponsorship for you guys, it happens, I would say, easily. Most people don't get chased down the mountain and say, hey, we want to sponsor you. There's usually a little process that goes on. And I would say for you and your brother, for the first part of your sponsorship, everything was easy. People came to you, they had contracts. There might have been a couple tough conversations, but really, when you're 14 years old and Sean's 11 or 12, people want the Pettits as part of their program, and it's the Pettit package. And did you ever have a problem or think of it like that where, oh, every sponsor I have, Sean has, and it's kind of weird, or is that just how life was working for you at that point?
I think we were just rolling with it, and it was before the whole social media thing, and I remember some of the other people I looked up to were like brothers. Like I remember there was some wakeboard like pros that were brothers, and there's definitely some ski brothers, and I thought that was a cool thing that they both did the same thing. And yeah, I never thought it was like an hindrance. Definitely thought it was like a advantage to have kind of a package. It was a cool thing, but then once we did split apart, I realized that it wasn't always going to be the whole brother thing, and it's actually good that that's the way it kind of evolved.
Well, I'm going to take a real quick break. I'm going to talk about my sponsors. My first sponsor is Evo. And if you've been to Evo.com, you know that Evo creates the best user experience, has the best brands, offers a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders over $50, and a no-hassle return policy. Well, if you haven't noticed, they're also helping change the world of retail. The store creates experiences, events around the sports we're passionate about, they build communities of like-minded people, and they make a difference through giving back. Evo has stores in Denver, Seattle, and Portland, and soon they're opening up stores in Whistler. To find out more about in-store events or to buy the things you're going to need this winter at the best prices, head on over to evo.com. My next sponsor is Rescue Water. When I first started drinking Rescue Water, it was a bottle before bed after big nights and I'd wake up feeling awesome. But Rescue Water has so many more benefits than just after big nights. It's all about being proactive in your recovery. And Rescue Water is proactive recovery for when you get off the mountain, out of the gym, or done your sport. It's a difference that you will feel, and it will hydrate you so much better than your traditional sports drink. Next time you're at the store, grab a Rescue Water, or head on over to rescuewater.com, enter the code RESQ Water TPM, that's all one word, and you'll get 20% off a 12-pack and become a believer. My next sponsor is Outdoor Research. And I've been wearing their outerwear since I moved to Seattle in 2000 because it works better than anything else on the market. It's developed and tested in the Northwest, so you know it's gear you can trust. OR is committed to improving your experience with exceptional product so you don't have to think about your gear while you're out on your journey. But don't just take my word for it. In this year's Powder Magazine Apparel Guide, there was one brand voted Apparel of the Year. It was Outdoor Research. So when you're shopping for outerwear this winter, get the best. Head on over to outdoorresearch.com, and new customers, you will get 15% off your order when you check out. Enter the code Powell Movement. That's all caps, all one word, and valid until the end of the year. Those are my sponsors, and we're talking about the brothers being together as a package. But that package gets broken up, and I think I might have been a big player in that, unfortunately. Fortunately, who knows? But
yeah,
there's a time in Whistler, probably 2006, 2005, we had to split the burger place, which was probably your favorite burger place till we had this conversation. And
yeah.
we sit down, it's me, you, your brother, and your mom, and I remember dreading having this conversation, thinking about it the weeks leading up to it, going, I'm going to have to drop Cal Pettit from the K2 program and keep his brother, and the only way to do that, and to do that being like a stand-up guy, is to do it face-to-face, in person, with both brothers there, and the mom, and it wasn't going to be an easy conversation, and I think I remember trying to spin it to you, like, hey man, you're going to break off from here and you're going to create your own career, and that's what has to happen. And I would think when I was telling you things like that, you must have been pretty pissed off or pretty upset or pretty like, what the fuck, man? Like, what are they doing? And what was your thought process throughout that? Because I'm guessing you probably remember it.
Yeah, I mean, it probably felt like kind of failing a class or something like that. You definitely were not too psyched at all, but I think those times makes you a stronger person. because if you just get everything handed to you, it's not really the real world. So
you're saying Sean doesn't live in the real world?
Sean's definitely has had a good, but he's not saying he hasn't worked hard for it. Everyone gets different strokes of luck, and I ain't mad at you, bro. I definitely remember it stinging, but when that happens, it gives you like more of a fire to like try to be better at what you can do and work harder. So yeah, if anything, it like lit a little fire under me more and tried to like push my skiing. So
I look at it like this. Yeah, you could have stayed on K2, and your salary would have gotten less and less every year. Sean's would have gotten more and more, and you would have been more frustrated through the end of like, hey, why is my brother getting more? When really the brand had to pick one and market one of the brothers. But to me, I knew it was going to be a tough thing, and I figured it was going to keep you down for a year or two. You'd figure it all out. Your talent as a skier spoke for itself, so there was going to be a future. But are there a couple of years of uncertainty or like, hey, I might have to get a job? Or really, I think you're only like 15, 16 years old, so you're probably not going to get a job.
Yeah.
But there's probably some uncertainty in what your ski career is going to be.
That all like resolved itself pretty quick. I think it was Greg Strokes who put me in contact with Black Diamond, and then they gave me a deal, and it ended up being better than what I was getting from K2. So the people you know and people talking for you and telling other people that like, hey, this person's got some talent, definitely like helped out. And then it gave me an opportunity to work with different film companies like TGR. And I think it was Ian Mack who like helped get me on North Face, and that was like a huge turning point in my career. That was like a long relationship and got me in with a lot of cool trips and productions. So
Wait, you say that was a long relationship. Are you not on North Face anymore?
no, I've been on Orage for the last 3 years now.
My bad. I didn't even know Orage still made clothing.
Yeah, they hit me up when I was still on North Face and like offered me a pretty good deal, and North Face was going through changes with managers, and they were kind of a big company that have a lot of different people in-house changing around, and Orage offered me a good 3-year. It's up now, but it sounds like they want to keep working, and their stuff has come a long way even since I've been on the team. So,
and Orage was the shit. When you think about skiing in 2000 to 2006 or 7, the Orage Masters, their clothing, they had tons of athletes, they had a great line, and then they decided to change their philosophy on how they were going to market the brand for a couple years. And that kind of screwed them, and then they're coming back, and they took you from North Face, and who else is part of their program now?
Bushy's on it, and Elise, and Banks Gilberti, he's been on it for a while. They kind of like redid their team just recently when I got on, like the last 3 years. They started making more technical wear too, so they wanted to get some more backcountry guys on board. I think when that whole downward fall went, they sold the company to some guy.
Yep.
The original owner. And since I've been on the team, the original owner had bought it back before I got on because he didn't want to see his baby kind of going down, and now it's back on the up. So yeah, it seems like it's in good hands again.
Well, it's always nice when you're the original owner, you can sell at a decent price, then the new company comes in, destroys your fucking brand so it's worth nothing, and then you can buy it back for cheap and build it right back up again. So hopefully that totally turns around for him. Back to BD. Was that when they first got into skis?
Yeah, I think when they first got into making freeride skis.
Their first run at that, and I could be wrong about this, but I didn't hear many good things about those BD skis in the beginning. I'm sure they've changed after time.
No, the first ones I had were so soft. They were like nice and fat, but I remember always punch fronting because they'd bend and couldn't charge on them super hard. But as the years went on, they got better and better, but I was always jealous of my friends like Kai and like other people that were on these like Rossi S7s and shit, and being like pretty jealous. I remember even one time North Face was like, you need to change your ski sponsor because the skis suck. And now I'm on some of the best skis out there, so I'm definitely pretty stoked now, but you kind of adapt to whatever you're riding.
When you're skiing a ski that's soft like that, and you take the risk that you do, sometimes that puts you in precarious situations where if your product was better, you could have more confidence in your ski and do things differently. But when you know that they could buckle at any point, you kind of have to be a little timid, I would think, in some spots.
I actually did get to feel pretty confident on some of their models, but Yeah, there was definitely a few times where I was like, fuck, is it worth just suffering some pay for like a better ski? Like, it seems like you can't be skiing on a ski that you don't trust.
But they can pay you to do that, and you don't have to tell me the exact number, but I always think it's way cooler when you do, but you don't have to. What does BD pay you at a point? Because it's more than K2, and at K2 at that point, I think you're making like $8,000 or something, not too much by any means. So is BD like double or triple that?
Yeah, they were paying me like 20 grand US, so that went pretty far in Canadian at some point, sometime. And all their other gear was awesome, like the backpacks and gloves and all that shit, the whole avalanche gear. They had a lot of perks and they treated me well. And then something shifted in the company and they had to cut my pay substantially. So they were offering me 5 grand from 20 for like 3 years in a row. And then I was like, I gotta find something else if I'm gonna be trying to make this a job. And I was still on North Face at that time.
And that's a great sponsor for your finances and everything else. Are they the reason you're in TGR?
North Face?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the connection there.
So that brand, they're part of a huge corporation. They're part of Vanity Fair. But I feel like they do a really good job for being part of a corporation to not look like they're part of it, but they still are. And they create the biggest opportunities for you because I feel like when you get back into TGR, that's what puts Callum Pettit back on the map for the first time since he was Sean's older brother. I mean, that's the first time you stand out as your own man in film, I feel like. I don't know if you have a different feeling, but the opportunities created by North Face and probably the money they can bring to you is something that you can't really replicate in skiing.
Yeah, and they had a filmer in Pemberton that had also a sled crew, and that's kind of where I got introduced to the whole sledding thing and taught me the ropes out there. And that's through filming with TGR. If I didn't have that like filming opportunity, I probably wouldn't have bought a snowmobile as quick and like got into it as quick as I did. So yeah, it definitely was like a nice natural evolution of getting into the backcountry through like the helps of a sponsor and film company. So I had like a '01 snowmobile, an ancient relic nowadays looking back, and snowmobiling in ski boots. Nowadays we hardly ever wear ski boots from the parking lot. Learning to sled in that is pretty funny looking back.
That experience for you is that fork in the road separates you from your brother in terms of skiing. Because where I look at Sean is, I don't want to say a country club skier, but the conditions are right and he's going to go out. You've become more of a mountain man than you probably thought you were going to be when you were younger. But when I talk to people, it's like, no, Cal is totally comfortable way out there in the mountains, and that's where his home is. And then you talk about Sean, and it's maybe a different thing for Sean. And that's great because you guys are brothers, but you're different people. Do you see that too?
Oh, yeah. Especially younger too. Like, Sean was so spoiled. And then he like went with it too. He's like, I don't like hiking. And he had so much heli time when he was filming with MSP. There'd always be a little joke when we'd be going sledding. Like, oh, Sean, like, meet us out there in the heli. Poking fun at him for like being the country club skier. And yeah, he definitely didn't want to sweat too hard once he got all those recognitions and just the heli budge and being able to be out in the mountains with ease and not having to hike. Remember the cold rush? The first cold rush too, when we had to do the touring race?
Yeah, I do.
That was his first time touring, and I don't think that was like a good opener to it either.
A race?
Because it was like a race over a few hours, and it's just like he was gassed, and he's still not into it, the whole touring thing, but hopefully he will find a love for it eventually.
Why would he? He's got his whole program kind of mapped out, and it seems like it's working for him, and he doesn't have to work that hard in terms of the cardio of touring to get where he wants to go.
I know, but I just find it is fun, earning your turns and getting up the mountain where you can see things more closely, and it's quieter, and it is like more peaceful. I just don't think he's actually experienced that yet, but I think he would like it. Like once he does, we'll see.
It'll be up to you to get him out on one of those trips to where he appreciates it.
I gotta get him on a touring setup, take him out to a cabin and make him cook shit. He's a good cook, so I can see him doing fine in those environments of staying out in the mountains.
When you're with TGR, you film with a lot of certified badass mountain men type people. And who teaches you the most when you're out with those guys? Because I'm sure you're out with Sage, Ian McIntosh, there's a lot of guys. And is there one of those dudes that you look at as like a mentor?
Definitely McIntosh. taught me the most. He's got that leader of the pack mentality. He wears it good. He'll tell you how it is, and he's not afraid to like raise his voice and tell you when you're fucking up, or like give you some pointers. And he's like a badass sledder and mountaineer type too. I've even done one of the cooler descents around here that I've done with him and Dave Treadway, another badass snowboarder here, Joe Lax. And he's down to like get after it even if the cameras aren't filming him. So that's like inspirational too. And then like I did one heli trip with TGR around here. I was always hoping I'd get to go to Alaska when I was younger with them and Mac, but that didn't quite happen. I did actually get a call from TGR when I was younger to go up to Haines because Ben Shetler hurt himself, but it was like the very end of the season, and by the time I got up there it was pretty much done. We did a run or two. But yeah, McIntosh definitely was the leader for the whole gang in Pemby.
A standout moment, which you probably don't want to hear about. Surprised it never made global news.
The hole in one. I knew that was coming.
Your hole in one, yeah. You hit like a 60-foot cliff. You get off balance. You fight to get yourself in position where you're not going to die. Then you start tomahawking really violently. And when all should be said and done, it's the worst crash ever, it looks like, because you just disappear and you're gone. Tell us what happens from your perspective.
That one was the very first run of the morning. So yeah, great way to start the day.
Yeah.
We like show up and McIntosh kind of points it out and he's like thinking about it. And I was like, I'll do it. I was hungry and I saw it in my head, saw it was like doable, and went up to the top, buckled my boots up like as tight as they could. And filming, like I'd always be like, hey, make sure you take a picture of shit, and then always would forget. A lot of times you just have to like go on your memory of what you saw, which I did get better at, but I still like get up on top of lines like, fuck, I didn't take a picture.
No big deal when you're playing with your life.
But I actually I didn't even see the hole when we were looking at the cliff because the angle we were looking at it must have just blended into the slope.
Okay.
So once I did fall and then stop and then snow come over top of me from the slough, wasn't a ton, but enough to kind of like wedge me in the hole a little more because I didn't fall through all the way. I was just wedged at the top.
If you haven't seen this, he's crashing and there's just a little hole in the mountain that probably drops down 30 feet. And it's a 1 in a million shot that he is going to crash and fall through this hole, but he does.
I'm sure if you're listening, you've probably seen it. So, yeah, so I was wedged at the top, got covered. I was like, what is going on here? Get really panicky and almost like see my life flash before my eyes. Like, fuck, like, is this the end? And then I fall through, like, can breathe. It's darkness on either side of me. I'm like, what the fuck? I just fell into the mountain.
How far did you fall in?
Like 12 feet, 15 feet. But it was onto like a big pyramid of snow. And it went down, I don't know how far, into darkness on either side of me.
Oh, wow.
So once I was there, I was just standing there looking at like the wall. Didn't even want to look down. Pretty shocked. And they came up pretty quick. I'm sure it was more terrifying for them because they had no clue if I was okay or not.
Yeah.
Whenever like someone crashes and I'm watching, I'm more probably scared than they are because you're like, fuck. And actually the funniest part of that was as I was doing that, that's right at the gas drop on the Pemberton Ice Cap, which is like a spot where everyone stops and drops their gas because it's kind of a T point. And a group of like 20 plus sledders are at the call sitting watching this.
Oh.
And like afterwards we get my shit and then we sled up to them. At that point my day is like, I'm done. My leg muscle got pretty beat up from my boots being so cranked in the Tomahawk. But I remember seeing a buddy, Patty K, who's a legend around here, and he hands me a beer. And all these sledders like, holy shit, dude. One guy had his little handy cam. He's like, you want to see it, dude? Like, shows me the crash. I was like, fuck. And they're all like, you just fell in the mountain, man. And just like all these rednecks, it was pretty classic scene to like have one of those insane crashes.
Is that the only time you felt like you could die?
I think it was probably one of the only times where I was stuck and the snow has covered my mouth and I couldn't breathe for like a few seconds. So, yeah. There was one other time I remember in Italy, it was like insanely deep and we hit something. I just like landed kind of top heavy or something and I was wedged into the snow and couldn't breathe and flailed myself out. But it's scary that you can get suffocated and it's not even from an avalanche. It's from deep snow or a tree well or just getting stuck upside down in the depths. But I've never been in a major avalanche or anything like that.
But you did have that moment where your life's flashing before your eyes when you fall in the hole.
Yeah, that was scary.
The next standout project I remember from your career, you end up hooking up with the Sherpas.
My first trip with the Sherpas was actually like a winter camping trip up in Alberta. And we like stayed in tents for a week. It was my first time meeting them. I'm like sleeping with one of the guys in the tent. And there's actually a funny story.
You can tell it.
So I'm just like pretty quiet kid. I was probably 19 or something. And camping at like 10,000, it was like pretty damn high. So you're like having all these weird ass dreams when you like sleep at elevation.
Yep.
And I like tell them a few days after, I was like, I had a wet dream the other night. And I'm beside Malcolm, who I like barely know. He's like, what the fuck, dude? And I had a dream. I like was banging some chick in a hot tub and had a wet dream. And
man, I've never had one of those. Like, I read about them in high school, and I never just woke up and was like, whoa, that happened. But you had one sleeping with a dude, which is totally cool, but just weird to me.
I think they're pretty rare. I think that only happened to me twice. It was cool.
2 more times than I've ever had it. Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. Is that filming for All I Can, that trip?
Yeah, that was with Hoji and Rubens and Heimer. We're all there. And that was like a pretty full-on touring and like hiking all the lines trip. So that definitely like was an introduction to manlyhood in the mountains. I was on the North Face at this point and had a sleeping bag, but had like a pretty, not one of their warmest ones. I remember freezing my ass off up there. I'm pretty sure right after I finished that trip, I was like, I need to order some warm ones. This one was not good enough. And yeah, now I have a bunch of warm sleeping bags saved up and very happy in the sack when it's cold now.
So you're warm when you have wet dreams now?
Yeah, it freezed up and only had one pair of Lon Johns.
That movie, All I Can, that's the movie where JP has that segment, Nelson, I believe. And that is like the most shared movie of its time in skiing because I feel like the cinematography and the vibe of that movie was so fun. And then JP's part in Nelson really blew it up and made everybody want to watch that movie. So that puts a lot of eyeballs on Callum Pettit.
Yeah, it definitely put the Sherpas on the map too and got them more work.
The next one you do with the Sherpas after that is the Great Siberian Traverse. That's a weird one because the editing and filming and everything is amazing. It was one of my favorite movies of the year. Skiing-wise, I don't remember much from the skiing because it was more of a story, and I'm sure there was great skiing in it. But it's you, Ingrid, and Nick Martini, and it was a trip that took you to Siberia, and you were on a lot of trains. You didn't speak the same language as anyone, and you were totally fish out of water. How long were you spending on trains during that year?
Yeah, that was actually an awesome time to be away from home because it sucked here that year. And when people ask me, like, where's the weirdest place you've gone for skiing, that's probably at the top of the list. But I had been in Europe beforehand for probably a couple weeks almost. I did the Skiers Cup in Zermatt, which was like a Europe versus America.
That Swatch thing?
I think I did that. And then I went and met up with my brother and the Keep Your Tips Up gang in Italy. And then went to France, trained there. Actually, that's right when I got on Black Crows. So I met Julian and Camille, who owns Black Crows, and got a pair of skis from them right before I did the Russia trip. So I did a bit of skiing there in Chamonix. And there was a funny thing. North Face was setting the whole visa up on the passports. I tried to get it done before I left to Europe, but they're like, we're not going to do it in time. So they sent me my passport back. I went to Europe, sent my passport back to the States for them to get the visa. They sent it back to France. I got it a day before I went to Russia.
Whoa.
So I was like panicking about that.
I'm sure they were panicking more than you because they're the ones making the movie.
Yeah. Everything goes smoothly. I meet up with the rest of the gang in Moscow, and then we fly to the eastern Russia. Vladivostok was the city we started in. Yeah, like Russia all the cities are pretty run down besides Moscow. It seems like they were nice at one point, then they just no upkeep, and everyone's got a pretty cold attitude and no one speaks English. We were in the first class cart on the train, and it was still very small and not luxurious at all. The first leg of the train was 3 straight days of being on a train.
That's crazy. 72 hours on a train, and then you do that a few different times, I would think, throughout that trip.
That was the longest one. I think the total amount of time we spent on the train was 6 or 7 days, which is still a long time out of like the 20 so days we were there. The brutal part was after we'd spent 3 days straight on a train, we get out and still have to drive like 10 hours to get to the mountain. And then once we stopped the drive, then it was like a snowmobile ride in with all of the gear into this cabin. And then once we were at the cabin, it was like, you could finally like relax. Well, I guess we were relaxing a lot the whole time, but you could finally like stop sitting and start moving your legs a little more. You'd really appreciate every time the train did stop and you could go use some energy. I brought a little cruiser deck skate, which was very nice. And Ingrid was doing workouts all the time. Like she was definitely getting a little stir crazy. And Nick was just pounding beers.
Were you pounding beers too? I would think you might be part of that crew.
I was pounding beers, but Nick could definitely drink a lot more beers than I could. And then Leo, who filmed that whole thing, who's actually one of my good friends and lives at my house, he spent so much time filming out the window. He basically just had the camera pointed at the window the entire time. It was just filming out the window.
Well, it sounded miserable the whole trip, but the pictures and video that came out of it were one of my favorite of that year. It didn't win any awards in the Powder Awards, but one of my favorites. Are you peeing right now?
No, I'm actually just in the sink pouring out some shit.
It's totally fine. I haven't had anybody pee on the podcast before.
I probably will need to pee soon.
Okay. Well, we haven't had anybody have a wet dream on the podcast either, so you're a lot of firsts right here, Cal.
Yes.
I'm going to take a break real quick. It's time for me to talk about my final set of sponsors. And my next sponsor is Spy Optic. They have been independent since '94 and taking a playful approach to everything they create. They're killing it on the innovation game this season with their new electrochromic one-lens technology. If you haven't heard about the Ace EC goggle, it packs the power of 3 lenses into one by changing tints with the touch of a button. It's crazy innovation that creates one goggle for any light. It's the best goggle on the market, period. Check out spyoptic.com for all the details on the game-changing EC, as well as their newest athlete signature models and sunglasses. For listening to the show, the good folks at Spy are going to give you 20% off their entire site. When you check out of their site, use the code capital TPM, the number 20, all one word at checkout, and you will get that 20% off. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery based out of Bend, Oregon. They are all about drinking beer outside and supporting snow sports and culture. They really put their money where their mouth is, and this year there's a bunch of projects that prove that. There's the Pray for Snow movie project, which 10 Barrel is the only beer company to ever produce their own ski and snowboard movie. They're also working with Mike Bassich to build a Snowcat mini pub, and they'll have their Hella Big Air contest this year, March 9th at Copper Mountain, March 30th at Mount Bachelor, and there will be one more TBD location and date. So next time you're at the store, make sure you pick up some 10 Barrel and support the beer that supports you. You can find all about the Hella Big Air, the movie tour, athletes, and more over at 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors, and now we'll get back into the podcast. You had back-to-back-to-back winters with the Sherpas. Your last movie with them was Into the Mind.
Yeah.
That, for you, puts you back to where maybe you were when you were a kid, like right back on top of everything. You win Best Line for Into the Mind. I'm sure it's an award that means a lot to you compared to a lot of the other awards you've won. You did this on your own, no help from anybody. It's just the Cal Pettit show. And do you think like that?
No, that definitely was a huge achievement to get that recognition, and everything lined up. And I was given a sweet opportunity to go out with those guys and finally getting to go to Alaska with the TGR crew, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely was like up there on what I wanted to do at the time and go ski the raddest spine lines via helicopter, and the conditions presented themselves, and it was just like, full like slaughter fest of skiing, and that was still the best skiing I've done. There are best terrain I've got to ski still, so it's a huge pedestal in my mind.
What could be a fourth year of filming with the Sherpas doesn't happen because I don't think they make a movie that fourth year. Does that bum you out? Because these guys, and TGR as well, they helped you get your career back into the spotlight. I mean, the way that they are able to show skiing, and it's different than anybody else is showing it. There's some talented dudes that really make you shine. And when you find out there's no movie, what do you do? What happens in your mind?
I mean, I definitely think it would have kept my relationship going more with North Face if like the Sherpas were still wanted to make ski movies at the time, because once they stopped, then I was kind of out of the TGR crew and they had a pretty full roster. And yeah, it was definitely more how to like figure out shit on what to do next on your own. And that's when I was doing stuff with Sean for the Superproof movies, but the sponsors didn't really look at that as beneficial to them as much.
Those movies were different, and Sean has a unique vision for what he wants to do. One of those videos had a gun in it. Whatever, guns can be in movies, but not Canadian ski movies. They were just really dark and totally different, and while they were unique and cool to watch, when you got done watching it at a premiere, you just saw people looking at each other like, what the fuck did I just watch? It was awesome, but what was it?
Yeah.
So I can see why sponsors weren't really looking at that like a banner segment that you would have with a Sherpas or a TGR. Does that hurt you with sponsors? Is that the downfall of you in the North Face? Is that 1 year you're not filming with a major company and that allows them to say, hey, well, you're not doing enough?
Kind of, yeah. It was kind of like their cop out of wanting to match what Orage was giving me. But I think at the same time, I was getting kind of stagnant on the whole regular ski movie part anyways. So it was nice for my like brain to be part of something different, because watching a TGR movie over, it's hard to do that every year. What's the whole purpose of this when you don't even enjoy like watching just a regular ski porn movie anymore?
And when you're so close to it, you've been doing it your whole career, I can see where that gets old. But having gone to premieres this year, well, yeah, a lot of these movies blend in together, and I couldn't tell you one part from the other a couple days after I see a movie anymore. I think it's more for the masses. The ski porn definitely gets people stoked to go skiing. For the pro skier, there's a lot of things that you guys think about that we don't. And do you need to see that every year? No, but I think producing that, I mean, when MSP changed their format to make a movie that told a story, it sucked in my opinion. And then when they went back to their ski porn, everybody was high-fiving and stoked.
I know. It's like, you're like, oh, we're over the ski porn, but then you realize like we are skiers and we can't act. And we should probably give the fans what they want.
But the Sherpas are able to do a ski pornish movie and tell a story. And the way that they produce their movies, it doesn't feel forced, at least with the Siberian Traverse. It didn't seem like a ski movie to me. It seemed like a travel adventure.
Yeah. The Sherpas, they're still making films and stuff into the mountains. So hopefully there'll still be more opportunity to work with them down the line. I think they want to do more of a feature film soon anyways. So who knows what will be coming out from them, but they've been more doing commercial work for companies and kind of more where the money's at these days.
Everybody wants to eat and they want to eat good food.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this day and age, everything is so instant where the whole movie formula, a lot of people aren't doing that anymore, and it's more about releasing web content and things for free. So now is the kind of age where you can reinvent yourself and just got to work hard at producing your own shit and working with the right people.
Well, I would say working with the right people and producing your own shit while this isn't your own project. I think the last big project that you've been a part of is probably the best ski movie I've seen in years. And I should have brought this up on my podcast with Kye Peterson, but the fires in Canada were going strong and it was really smoky out there. So I forgot to bring up Numinous, Kye's movie that you're a part of. There hasn't been a ski movie in years that scares me as much as that film. I mean, the lines that you guys are on, just pillows on pillows, and the way that it was shot, there's no fluff. It's all gnarly stuff. Did you feel like you guys had a really heavy movie coming together when you were filming it?
Yeah, I mean, being out with Kye, like he's always charging, and it was 2 years, so it was kind of a bummer. The 1 year I went to Chatter Creek, which was for Numinous. Kye had gotten hurt right before, so he couldn't come. So I was there with Rubens, which was still an awesome trip. But then the next year, they went back to Chatter Creek, and something came up with Black Crows that they really wanted me to do. And that was like my one big film trip of the year that I was planning to do, and I had to bail on it because of some sponsorship stuff that they wanted me to do. And then in the end, they changed the dates, and I could have gone, but Kai had already asked a couple other people, so that sucked. That was like some all-time footage they got for that film, but I think we knew as we were filming the level of skiing was going to be there, and that they had some sick action to work with. So yeah, anytime Kai is filming, he's pretty savage.
Is it different working on a project with Kai? Because I don't know how many projects he's produced before where he's put his name on it, but is there a different vibe when he's running the show?
Yeah, he definitely had that as his baby, so he was pretty passionate about that one, where sometimes he wouldn't care as much. And I've worked with Ethan before, too, before working with that project. He's always dialed like he's filmed for TGR. He was kind of the spearhead guy as the head cinematographer for that. So it was a good team that was working on all levels, and they did a good job from kind of start to finish to bring it to the finished product.
And that's one everyone needs to see. I mean, if you haven't seen a ski movie for a couple of years, check out Numinous. And I don't know if you'll be fired up to go skiing. You might be scared.
Yeah, check it out.
At this point, I'm not going to talk about your skiing anymore. I'm going to talk about inappropriate questions. Sometimes, if I don't know you, I'll bring someone else in to ask inappropriate questions. But sometimes when I do know you and I haven't talked to you in a while, I will ask them myself. And you are one of those people that I've known for 15 years almost. And you're only, how old are you?
28 now.
I've known you a long time. And there are a couple questions that I have for you. And the first one, have there ever been a moment in time where you're genuinely jealous of your brother and the opportunities he gets, where you think to yourself, why does it all come to him so easy and I have to work for everything?
I'm sure there's been some times, either jealous by helicopters or girls. Sean got a lot of girls when he was younger.
You probably did okay there too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually met my girlfriend at the Numinous premiere, which was pretty funny. We're almost been going a year now. And Sean's been dating Cash for like 3 years now. We're settling down in our older age. But, I mean, I was paying Sean rent for like 3 years living at his house. So being the older brother paying your younger brother rent, that got me wanting to get my own place. And it inspired me to get my own place because he was smart with what he did with his money and didn't just spend it all partying. He'll buy some nice clothes every now and then and spend some money, but I don't think it was ever like a bad jealousy. If anything, it was like a good jealousy and made me want to be more dialed.
That leads me perfectly into my second question. I heard you bought a house, aka Stabbin' Cabin in Pemberton, and I heard it's like a dungeon that when you go to sleep, pebbles fall from the ceiling onto your head. And tell me how that even happens and about this place, because it sounded like there was a concrete floor that you had lifted up to become your ceiling, and pebbles fall down on you, and it's got to be interesting when you bring your girlfriend home and she gets a concussion from sleeping.
There's like a few helmets at the door that you got to put on when you come in, and it's a bunker. So if the world's ever going to shit, you can come over here, wear a helmet, and we can hang out, play some board games.
Are you serious about the helmets?
There are helmets there. There's a lot of rocks. There's probably like 1,000 rocks on my ceiling.
So what happened? Did they raise a slab of concrete that was poured onto the ground?
It's kind of a mystery. This building was an old water tank.
You live in an old water tank?
Yeah.
Okay.
The walls you can see are all like weathered from water. I was told by some old timers that it was a water tank for if something caught on fire in the industrial yard where I lived, in case, because there was no fire hydrants at that time or piping. So this was like the fireproofing place of the whole industrial yard. And the guy who I bought it off, he's like known as like a reusable carpenter. He buys all these weird places and does something with them, gets a lot of used materials. And I don't know how solid this place is, but he built a place on top of the bunker, the upstairs. I live in the concrete area, but he cut huge doors and windows all into the concrete with a big diamond blade saw.
Okay.
And no one lived in here. It was kind of his storage area. So it was basically a big blank canvas. And now I've got like a beautiful living space in here and kitchen, and it's definitely funky. Everyone who comes in here is like, wow. And since I've had my girlfriend, we've definitely made it more homey. Had some women's touch. Got an L couch. Living large now.
Have you ever had a rock hit you on the head when you're just walking around your house?
No, the guy that I bought it off, I guess got like an industrial pressure washer and actually had a hard hat on and went to town with the washer. And so the rocks that could have fallen, most of them had fallen from that. Yeah, I could show you, but unless there's an earthquake up here, which I don't think it happens too often, I think they're pretty solid.
I heard it was a unique living situation. And now my final question is, you've lived a different life than most kids. Education was not a focus. Skiing was. And that is really, really cool, but skiing can only last so long. And there will be a crossroads at some point in your career where you have to figure out what you're going to do after skiing. Have you thought about that? And what do you think the future for Cal Pettit could be when you're done with your ski career?
Man, I'm pretty good at cooking breakfast.
Okay.
Breakfast sandwich spot in the yard or something. Or I've got a few little business schemes up my sleeve to do with food. It's definitely been crossing my mind more and more and looking down towards the future on what I want to do. But I think it's basically about going out and doing those things and finding out the ones you don't want to do. But like the whole schooling thing, I think is great. But I've also heard from my girlfriend, her parents spent thousands of dollars on school, and then her job didn't even necessarily need a degree. I think you can learn a lot of skills without school and get good jobs by knowing people. So yeah, I would like to work in more of the behind the camera realm of things, I think, in the future. Get more into video and camera work. It seems like a lot of people who've gone that way make a good living, and I've been in this realm of like industry, so I know what it takes to work with the film team, so that definitely interests me.
You say that where, yeah, you're a mountain man. You can probably suffer in the mountains and have a lot of experience suffering in the mountains. Your brother could never do that job.
Yeah.
It's just funny how different you guys are, where that's one branch you could go, and that's one that he would never think of.
Obviously, it doesn't look very fun hiking with a big backpack either, but we'll see where I go with that. But even just working for like a production company doing other things other than skiing too. Like I don't want to just say I'm going to be hiking around filming other skiers, but I think I'd like to be more creative behind the camera as well in the future. I also like working with my hands and been doing a lot of handiwork here. So something like having a workshop and building something.
Cal's Contractors.
Welding is also super cool. There's a welder that lives right behind me who's got his own shop that looks like he can build a lot of cool shit out of metal.
From all those things that you had mentioned, I say you put breakfast sandwiches on the back burner, make them for yourself, and then do all those other things first, then get back to food at a later date. That's my opinion, but my opinion really doesn't matter here.
Or I can just work for Groove, slaving away in the kitchen and give him some days off.
Keep it a family affair. That could be fun as well.
I've done a few shifts at his restaurant. He's been slaving away in the kitchen.
Well, Cal, it has been awesome seeing your career blossom and just seeing how you have handled the ups and downs of a career, because if I were in your shoes, there'd be a lot of times where I'd be more down than it sounds like you were ever down, seeing things with one of my siblings going so well and for me not going as well. But you never took that attitude. You moved forward and made things happen for yourself, and other people helped make things happen for yourself as well. It's been cool to see, Ann, and I thank you for your time. And what's coming up this year? You got any big plans?
Yeah, there's definitely a few things up my sleeve of projects that I want to work on. I'm trying to get funding for, and
you better do that quick.
Yeah, it's been a struggle trying to do all that stuff because I've always worked with companies that's their job, getting the money to make it. But yeah, doing some sponsor trips, and we'll see what the snow's like around here. But I always love being around home and snowmobiling and getting shit done around here. Kye's also doing another project that I worked with last year that we'll also be doing this year about the history of the Coast Mountains and different ski generations. Yeah, can't wait. The snow's flying again. But yeah, thanks for bringing back some old memories.
So that was time with Cal Pettit, and Cal's childhood must have been really tough. If you have to hear about how great your brother is every day, it must wear you down. I know it would wear on me. But listening to Cal, he took this all in stride, and when it was time for him to figure things out on his own, he did it. While Callum may never get to be as popular with fans and sponsors as his brother, Cal's skiing speaks for itself, and a lot of brands have wanted to support Callum Pettit and do so with no connections to baby brother Sean. Not the easiest thing to make happen, but Cal was able to do it. If you like the podcast, and I'm guessing you did if you've made it this far, please rate me on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you get your podcasts on. For Apple, go to Podcasts, search for the Powell Movement, click the logo, scroll down to where you see the stars, click 5 stars, and you're done. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for listening, and thank you to my awesome sponsors, Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, Outdoor Research, and Spy Optic for making the show happen. Have a great week, everyone.